On this week's episode, I'm joined by Mariana Sampaio. Mariana is an award-winning ceramic artist. She's the owner of Mariana Sampaio Studio and is inspired by both the old and the new. We discuss, amongst other things, the history of ceramics in Portugal and what makes this such a fascinating, beautiful, and unique art form. Welcome back, or welcome to another episode of Portugal, The Simple Life, and I'm really happy to be joined by Mariana Sampaio. Mariana, did I say it correctly?
Yes, perfectly.
Welcome, and thanks for joining us. How are you?
I'm good. I'm very good. Very glad to be here. Really excited about the invitation and looking forward to it.
Well, thank you so much. Mariana, why don't you start off by just telling us a little bit about you?
Okay, so my name is Mariana. I'm 29 years old. I'm Portuguese. I'm from the middle of the country, from a town called Gulgã, which is the International Horse Fair. So maybe some people probably know it. But I live and work between Caldas da Rainha, Alcobaça, and Santarém. So I'm always like I call it my Bermuda Triangle of work.
It's a big triangle.
Yeah. So I'm a fine artist, and I'm currently working with ceramics most of my time, between ceramics and illustration. I study in Caldas, fine arts degree and master degree, and then I specialize myself in ceramics, and I just found my passion basically. So before the ceramics, I used to work in painting, photography, printmaking, sculpture, all of it. So we've got a complete experience on art department on my university. But then I just realized ceramics was the way. So I took that course, was a full year, intensive year. And in 2017, I opened my studio, my art studio, and been working on that since then. Before that, I did some travelings with my exhibitions through Europe and a few in outside in Brazil also. One with the ceramics and another one with photography in Brazil. And I did some traveling through Europe with one of a fabric piece that won a competition called Jean Création Européenne. Was a French competition. Only 6 of each country were selected to represent the country. And then the exhibition went through the 10 countries that were participating with all the artists from each country. So I went to Italy, Spain, Hungary, France, Lithuania, I think. Was 10 in total, and finished it here in Portugal. And I also did some work and some exhibitions in England. I've got a straight collaboration with England. I did my Erasmus program in Birmingham on the BIAD, Birmingham Institute of Arts and Design, in fine arts also. And then in 2011-12, and then I did come back to England in 2017 to do an exhibition in London. And well, then I opened the studio, and then I've been fully focused on producing more stuff and making new pieces. And now I've got these 2 big projects. That one is related to my family traditions that are very important to me. For my work is inspired on laces and embroideries made by my grandmothers, by my aunts, my great-grandmother. So all the ladies from the family have got this traditional thing that they learn when they are little. They try to do with me, but I never was a good one doing embroidery in laces. So I find out that ceramics is way more easier for me. So I pick up their laces and their embroideries, and I give a new look, a more modern look. So it's a mix between the modern and the old with a more contemporary look. And it's also a kind of a way of not losing our roots and our traditional backgrounds. And each ceramic piece has a name of one of my grandmothers. So I
Beautiful.
actually came more or less prepared. So I've got
Okay.
a flyer here that I can show you. So
Oh, wow.
this one's that I'm talking about. So this one is called Dona Celeste. This one is Dona Maria. Dona Maria, unfortunately, is not with us anymore. Was my great grandmother, but Dona Celeste is very much alive and pumping a lot. She's my grandmother, and she's a great influential person on me. She raised me. She basically raised me. She's my second mom, and I do believe that we should honor our people during the time that they are here and not when they passed away. So
Yeah,
yeah,
it's a
in
beautiful
a quick
custom.
version, that's me.
What does Donna Celeste think of that piece
Oh,
of
she loves it.
ceramics?
She
Yeah.
she she loves it. She loves everything that I do. My family was always very supportive of my career and of my studies and my work. I didn't know what I wanted to do when I was very little, but like preschool little. So I always said to my mom, I want to be an artist. And she, okay, let's see what that going to happen. And but I always did stuff that were not very normal for kids of that age, like advanced drawings with perspective and stuff like that. So she saw potential, I guess, and she always support me and helped me in any way she could. And well, I guess she did a good thing.
It sounds like it. Mariana, let's talk about your Bermuda Triangle. When we interview people on the podcast, we love to speak about their terra, their land, their village. It sounds like you have a few.
Yeah.
So tell us a little bit about which is your terra, which is the terra. You often hear on the podcast people saying, well, I live in this place, but my heart is there. Tell us a little bit about your terra.
Well, my heart is a little bit divided between the two that I work and live. Well, as I said, I am from Gulgan, which is a very country side villa. It's a very old villa. And it's always about agriculture. It's about horses all the time. So for me, is the place where I grew up. Is the place where I was born there. But I never felt connected with my inner self like I am in Caldas de Rainha. So they both have the place in my heart. But if I have to choose between living in Gugan and living in Caldas, I would say always Caldas. But Gugan is a great place to a retirement plan. If you want to go to a quiet place, have your own backyard with chickens and horses and stuff like that, it's perfect. It's super quiet, super calm, and well, it's a great place to live. And it's actually the birth of the one very important guy that lived in the 19th century called Carlos Relvas. He has the museum, studio museum there. It's a very important place for photography and photographers. He was one of the pioneers of photography in Portugal after Daguerre and Niepce, the guys that invented photography. So it's a unique place, and it's the only one of its kind in the whole world. So it's very interesting to visit, and I'm always proud to talk about him and to talk about other people that live or were from there. But Caldas is the city that adopted me when I was 18. So I went to Caldas to to study, and it's like a disease, but it's a good disease. Like you first you feel strange, and then you gotta go into your blood, and you feel that you finally belong in the right place, and that place for me was Caldas. I felt like I was from there, and finally find myself there as well. So I would say that it's a great place to live. It's a city that you have that feeling that it's not a big city, but it feels big because it's spread to a large area. But you can do everything by walking. You got everything local, like shops, little farms. You got beach, you got mountain, you got country. You got everything that you have in a big city, but always with that feeling that you live in a village and you know everyone. And it's a city that's always in a constant, um, you know, exciting stuff happen. So it's a very old city. Also, it was born in the 15th century, because of a great lady that we had in our history called Donna Leonor, the queen. And it was she saw potential in college because she was passing through, and she saw some people taking baths on mud, with very smelly mud, and she asked why. That's the legend what they say. She asked what they were doing, and they say that those baths, that water was good for healing problems, health problems, bone problems, muscle problems, any kind of problems. And she herself kind of have some problems too, health problems, and she tried, and she saw that actually helped a lot. So she um, built the hospital. The first bath hospital in the world was built by
Yeah,
her.
thermal hospital.
Thermal hospital, exactly. And the city just grew up around the hospital since the 15th century, and it's one of a kind. It's beautiful. You still have the church and the hospital from her time, and she was a pioneer, and she was a lover of arts and a lot of stuff. She helped not just in Caldas but in the whole country. She helped Portugal quite a lot to which was something that was not very normal for the time. Usually it's the king that does that, but she was a entrepreneur. So it was a queen. She was already way ahead of his time, of her time.
Well, there's a few things that I want to unpack here. So I've been to Golgar,
Okay.
and it amazed me because it's not far from us here on the west coast. It's not too far from Caldas, and but it looks like a completely different part of the country. It kind of looks like Kansas, in the US, with
Yeah.
just all the cornfields, and
Yeah.
you don't feel like you're in Portugal actually. You eat very well there. The food is
Yeah.
amazing. Yeah, and then just miles and miles of cornfields and very flat. It's very, very
Yes.
flat.
Because
So that
it's a
was
valley, but it's
yeah.
a big valley between the mountains, and you got the river, the Tejo River, but it's a flat, plain valley, so it's very rich land because it floods a lot when the river goes up, and then when it rains, so it very rich lands for agriculture in general.
Yeah,
Sorry to
so
interrupt.
we went there with I went there with my family and my wife, and we loved it. It was a really great trip. But back to Caldas, I live near Caldas, and Caldas is awesome. You've got the market, you've got the park, that the
Yeah.
hospital, the thermal hospital is beautiful. It's a unique piece of architecture. But I'm guessing that Caldas is part of your heart, or Caldas is in your blood because of because of the ceramics. There's a big
Also, yeah.
history with ceramics, and so how did that connection start, and how did you get into this type of work?
Well, first, I did try ceramics when I was very little. I did some course in the Porto University on ceramics. I took the kind of a course for an experience for younger students before they go to the university. And I did 4 weeks, if I'm not mistaken. And I did try painting tiles, and it was a very interesting experience. And I always thought that maybe could be that way, but well, I was 14 or 13 years old. I didn't know what I was exactly going to do in the future. It was funny to see how life goes around, and then how I found myself again on ceramics. Then I had a full semester of sculpture in Caldas, which I just love. I used to paint, and I used to do illustration, and I thought bidimensional was the way. Painting was my way of express myself. But then I just realized after you create something with your hands. I mean, like from nothing, you build something in 3D. And then I just thought, no, se calhar, maybe is sculpture. So I did try to take as much information from every discipline in every area that I had from the university. So I try everything there was to try. And then Caldas has a great place, a great school in ceramics called Sencao,
Yeah.
which is it's a professional center for the ceramic industry. So it's not really like a art school. It's more a technical school where you learn the techniques, and then when you leave the school, the center, you will apply the techniques with your inspiration, with your art, with the all the things that you can build in your head. You basically can build in ceramics. He has his limitations, obviously. I always say that. It's not plastic. It's quite different to work. And it's always a surprise. And that was something that I really liked. I don't like jobs that you already expect what's coming. And ceramics is the opposite of that. You never expect nothing, because they have a saying that says that the kiln is the last painter. So it's not you. You could do everything right, and then goes to the oven, and then when it comes out, it could work perfectly, more than your expectations, or it could go straight to the garbage because it went wrong. So when I did that intensive course, I just realized that I knew how to sculpt something, which at the moment I didn't know. I thought it was just bidimensional. But then I just try ceramics, and I try sculpture, and I just realized, no, now this is me. Here is where I feel like home. So, and then obviously I always love Bordal Pinheiro pieces. And then I'm very nerdy, so I am kind of a nerd in history. So when I had the chance to do writing an essay about something related to ceramics, I went straight to Caldas da Rainha ceramic history. So I just start reading and reading and reading, and I just realized, no, this is the place that I need to be. This is the place that I need to create my work. And I learned so much about, not just about Bordalo, because I already knew him from his illustrations, his cartoons. That was a part of his life way before the ceramics. But then when I start seeing what he did with his life, which is was very late at the time, so we are talking 19th century, beginning of 20th century. He never worked in ceramics. He always working in cartoon and in drawing. And then very late in his life, I think he was way more than 30, but I think he was close to 40 already. He found out ceramics, and he just fall in love with everything, not just with the process of making it, but also with every studio, every factory, every place that someone was creating something. I think he just fall in love with everything. And most of the people think that the cabbage is and the ceramic with the animals are from naturally from him, that he create them. But actually it's not. The way before Bordal Pinheiro made those, you had tons of ceramists and potters that did that too, because I think what he just did, he just make a more perfect work. He perfectly the work they were doing before. And that's actually, it was not a Portuguese creation at all. Most of people think it is. It actually was a guy in France called Bernard Palissy that was the inventor of the animal ceramics with the snakes and the cabbages and the lizards and all of that. And it was, I think, I don't want to say 17th century, but I think was 17th or 18th century that Bernard Palissy did that. And then in Caldas, people start doing very late. We're talking about beginning of 19th century. And then by the end of the century, Bordalo took that, all that inspiration, he drank it from there, and he just started building new pieces inspired on his work. And he made something new. And he went way far, because today, when you see something like that, you never know almost who was Palissy, but you know who was Bordal Pinheiro. So he took it to the next level
To
for
another
sure.
level.
Yeah.
Um, Mariana, I mean, ceramics is is such a deep part of Portuguese culture. It's one of those things that when people from all over the world, ceramics is synonymous with Portugal, whether that be sculptures, whether it be the
Tiles.
stranger, the tiles on the walls, the tiles on the churches. This is from Porto. The ceramics. Why is it such an integral part of our fabric and our DNA here in Portugal?
Well, the introduction of ceramics in Portugal, it dates way back. I mean, even in Caldas, we have remains of ceramics from the Roman times. So it has to do also with the type of clay that Portugal has, and that's
Okay.
related to the type of land. So close to places where we have thermal baths now. The Romans were experienced people on thermal baths, so they knew where they were, and they knew the potential for everything, for economics, for healthcare, for doing ceramics. In Caldas, for example, we have very good baths because they are full of sulfur, and the water comes hot from the ground, and the sulfur and the rest of all the chemical components that are in the land, that helps a lot to build a very good clay. And you have that a little bit all over the country. From each part of the country, you got different types of clay. That means in color, in resistance, in a way that you build it. So that helps a lot. It's a very good base. And then, well, I think what makes Portuguese tiles and Portuguese ceramics so good and so known is because we are like a big pan of mixing of cultures from other places. So we've got great history on tiles because we had great invasions, Muslim invasions, and they have a marvelous culture on tiles that we call Moroccan tiles or Hispano Morisco tile, and that helps quite a lot because all our 14th, 15th, and 16th century, all our walls were covered by that, with half of the country down was full taken by Muslims, and that was bad and good. He always has his good things and always has his bad things. For them, and was a warm and still is a warm country. The tiles help a lot to not just covering the holes for beauty, but also for keeping a place fresh. So it's very good for temperature, and it's also very good to clean. So it was a way of making health and fresh places to live. So that's one thing. So later, we had great Netherlands influences. So the blue and white that we have today, it comes from Holland. It comes from the Netherlands, and we build it with their influence, but we make it a little bit better because we did so much. But at the time, we didn't have the money to buy tapestry for covering our walls like in big royal houses through Europe. So the Portuguese saw in tiles a way cheaper way to cover our walls, but with the same type of tapestry, but in tile, obviously, when you can make um, drawings about scenes of the daily basis, about royal scenes, religion scenes. So it was quite good for obviously churches, but also for palaces and places where it takes people to see and to feel like wow, that you feel like overwhelmed with that because it's quite big panels of ceramics through all places with had money at the time to buy them. It was still more cheap than buy silks or tapestry for your walls. So and also that what I said before about the Muslims, it was a great place to cover walls to make it the space fresh and also make it cleaner and give the illusion of bigger space because you can do uh, scenes with the perspective and that kind of makes an illusion into your eye also. So those are probably one of the most important things on the ceramics, just on tiles and also in sculpture. We have so many influences from around the world. Portugal always was in the past centuries a place to do commerce, to do merchandisings, and to was always in the route. And we were in so many places in the whole world when you we used to have a empire basically. So that helps a lot. And then we went to China and we went to Macau and we went to Japan and they had something that the European and no one in the whole world had, which was porcelain. And porcelain was something that only the Chinese knew how to do it. So today, our porcelain is more or less like the ones they do there, but you know that Chinese porcelain are the best in the world, and they knew how to do it for centuries. And it's just a curiosity. The best heritage that you can leave to your grandchild are rotten porcelain. So basically, the grandparents uh, uh, build porcelain like for you to work in the future in a rough stage, and then you let it being in rotting for years and years because that makes more features to build and sculpt, and it makes the porcelain, which is one of the hardest clays to work. It makes it very easy to be malleable to work. You have more plastic in the end when they spend so many times rotting. So and they have something that we didn't, which was a fully white background to paint, which is porcelain is purely white. So what we European did in Europe was trying for centuries and centuries. So we are talking about Middle Ages, Renaissance. trying to get to the right formula of clay, because clay and ceramics, it's a little bit like cuisine. So if you're working in kitchen and you're doing bakery, so ceramics, it's not so far. Even the tools are the same. So they try to perfect the 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 recipe uh, of the porcelain, and then they never could. What they come out with was a type of clay called faiança in Portuguese, or faience in English, which is also called faienza. It was a little bit before, I'm not sure, but I believe it was 15th century. And if I'm not mistaken, was actually invented in Faenza, the city in Italy. So that's
Okay.
why the name. And they were trying to find a clay that was white enough for you to paint, and it would look like porcelain. Chinese porcelain was very expensive at the time, and they invented the fans, which is something that we work still today. And well, it's not so good as porcelain still, but in Portugal we perfected again, and we painted it a lot. So we kind of got loads of experience on ceramics. I don't know if I answer your question.
Yeah, it's really fascinating. It's really interesting. Mariana, what do you love so much about ceramics? What do you love about this working with this product and the art form that it's become?
Well, first of all, is what I did before. You never know what's coming from the oven. That's the surprise element that makes not a boring job. It's not like a routine job at all. It's always different. And I don't do just ceramics in sculpture. I also paint tiles, and I'm always open to try new and different techniques. And that's also another thing about ceramics. It's a world so big and so incredible that when you feel like you know everything or you know enough, you're so wrong. You not even scratch the tip. It's so big, it's so different, and there's so many techniques in so many ways to do the same thing, and you learn so much with the different people, because it's a empiric work. You learn by yourself with people that learned by themselves before. So everyone's got a different way of doing it, and all of the ways are valid to go to the final work. And sometimes you're doing something in a way that's not good for that kind of piece. It could be done to other and works better. And you have someone that knows about this and wants to help you. And when that happens, you kind of crack the code to that particular piece. So for you, and it's also a line of work that kind of puts your resilience to the test. Because, yeah, because you always when I say you shouldn't expect nothing, you actually should expect that could be wrong all the time. It could be bad, and that's very good for your mind, because you always feel like you should do better, you can do better, you can find a way of getting the thing right. So for you to have an idea, I've got a piece, one of those laces, the embroidery pieces, that was a pain in the ass, really. It was. I spent 4 years doing the same piece in different techniques, and she always cracked in the end. So finally, after 4 years of devotion and lots of time and money threw away. So if you're doing this, you'd really love what you do, and it's
Yeah,
like you
that's true
said,
love. That's true
yeah,
love.
it is. It is. After 4 years, I finally figured it out how to do the piece without cracking. So, and I still feel that all the time and effort that I spent was worth it. So, or I'm stubborn, or I'm just dumb. I don't know. It's something that like I said, it's always different, and I feel like it's the type of technique, and it's the type of uh, let's call it product. And I don't like very much the word product, but it's the type of piece that makes you feel like you're learning all the time. It makes you study all the time, which is something that I love. I always said to my mom that I want to study for the rest of my life. So I'm working, but I always find a way of studying for the rest of my life. And I just felt like ceramics, and I do feel that still today, is the best way of expressing myself artistically. And it's it's so open to do anything. You can do anything in ceramics. You can create anything from nothing, from dirt, from mud, basically. And that's, I think that's very magical. Not don't want to go into religion, but in the Bible they say that God built man from clay. So if you think about it, you're kind of your own God when you build something from mud. I don't know. It's just, it feels like a little bit magic. I don't know. It's my way of putting the thing.
There's something that I've noticed in Portugal, and that we still have this relationship with the earth and with nature, a deep relationship. I've heard it in a person I've had on the podcast before who speak about cork. I've heard
Hmm.
it about people speaking about wine. I've heard it with, people that are trying to preserve nature. And now you talking about it, clay. People are talking about these raw materials that are not just materials. Like you said, you don't like to call it a product. It's something
No.
that's so much more. It's something that grows, and it's part of our, and I think it's a really beautiful part of our culture here. But you also spoke about your grandmothers and your great grandmothers with the bows. I mean, how did they inspire you to create such beautiful things? Because Mariana, those pieces that you've done are beautiful.
Oh, thank
They're
you.
lovely, lovely. How did your grandmothers inspire that and inspire you to create those?
Well, mostly it's not just the aesthetics of the piece. It's always what they represent or who they represent. And all my grandmothers and all the women of my family were strong, independent women, even through times that were very difficult to be a strong, independent woman. They all have their little stories of big stories of their lives that were inspired in somehow, and they inspired me. So they were women that work in the fields in the country, like in the under the sun from rise up to the sundown, and they had tons of kids, and most of them were not at all rich. They were poor people, but they never give up. And that's very important. And I think that's a lesson to me. Consider myself a younger generation. They always fight, and they always fought for their lives. I mean, they never had it easy on their lives, and I think that's so important for today, for you to feel how life is difficult and to appreciate the little things, because before you have these little things, and before we have the freedom, and before we have all of this, there were people that actually suffer for you to have what you have today, and that needs to be valued and appreciate, and it's something that you should value always. And I'm not saying that my grandmothers or my mom were well, uh, people that we didn't were lacking of food or anything. We always worked, and we always had way to go around in the problems. But they had husbands, for example, and most of the time they had to raise the kids by themselves because they had the husbands working away for a long time for trying to build a better life for their kids and then for the next generation. So it's someone, all of them are people that are inspired by the way they are um, fighters, and still all of them are so humbled. So like today I feel like everyone is so cocky all the time with all the things they have and all the things they did, but if you compare, that's nothing with what they spend and what they went through. So I think we sometimes we should look back to older generations and even maybe just our own family and realize that our family is the best inspiration that we could have for us, for our future. They taught you not to give up when even when times are gray or even dark like we are living today. Always keep a positive mind and everyone will be okay. They have a way of saying it when um, people today don't have kids because they don't have money or they don't have time. That's what usually we hear. And I always hear my grandmother saying, everything could be raised. Even when you don't have money, even when you don't have ways of putting food on a table, anyone can be raised. So I'm talking and I don't have kids, but this is very inspiring for me. I think it's my grandmother. It's by the way, she called it Celeste, like the sky. And I believe that she's one of my best inspirations, and she's one of my best everything. She's one of my best advisors. She's my best friend, with all respect to my mom, obviously. But I don't know. I think grandmothers have a point of view different from moms. They're moms in second turn again, and then that's a way of seeing things outside the box, and it's inspired all of them.
Beautiful. Mariana, how can people follow you online, get in touch with you, see your work, buy your work? Let us know
Okay, so
how we can get in touch.
Uh, I always say this. I'm a one girl show, so that means that I have to do everything. This thing for entrepreneur girl is a new thing for me. I always wanted to be an artist. No one told me about being an entrepreneur, but I'm learning. So I've got Instagram and I've got Facebook. I'm building a website, so eventually it will come up. I'm terrible on social media. I'm really good working with my hands, computers. It's not my best, but I will build a website very soon. It will be called marianasampaistudio.com. I own the domain already, which is not bad. It's halfway there. On Facebook and on Instagram, I also Mariana Sampai Studio. So if
Okay.
you go and look for me, you will find me for sure. And if you're in Portugal, you would find me in Caldas da Rainha or even near Santarém, which I've got two studios, a mini studio in Caldas da Rainha and the big studio near Santarém. So yeah, you can find me that, and you
Okay.
got all my contacts on my pages. So I'm trying to be as much as a quick response or on a quick answer on the social media. Sometimes it's hard, but I will try to do my best. So it's just me. So it's be making the ideas for paper, from paper to plaster, from plaster to clay, to painting, to burning in the oven, to do product photography, which also is a great challenge for me. So to do the package, so sometimes do the delivery also. So it's just me. So sometimes I wish I got more than 24 hours a day for doing it. Yeah. And I was being around giving classes on ceramics and drawing also, not just on the studio, but in the same place where I learned, which was a very interesting thing to happen. And yeah, I'm always online.
Cool. Okay, we'll put links in the show notes of the podcast so people can follow your work and see the beautiful things you're creating, and go shopping as well. You know, we've got to encourage
That
people
would
to
be
go
the best
shopping.
part.
Yeah. And yeah, I mean, we could always use more hours in the day. So thank you for sparing an hour for us, Mariana. It's been a lovely conversation. But a question that we ask all of our guests: Portugal, the simple life. Why?
Well, I think Portugal is a place where you can live a simple life because you got everything. It's like Portugal is the full package when you go on a vacation and you want everything just across the street. So you got wonderful weather, which is, well, the best thing that you could possibly have when you go somewhere. You got amazing food, and that's from north to south. You got amazing wines and amazing drinks also from north to south. And then the landscapes are something that, how is it possible such a small country has such a mix of landscapes and environments, country, beach, mountain. It's so complete. I've been foreign and been in other countries, and most of the times you know a country for a specific type of thing, for a region, for a wine, for a kind of a food, but I think Portugal got it all, and that's very good because it's just a tiny little thing on top of Europe. So that's amazing. And then on top of all of that, you got amazing culture. You have so many centuries of history, and with that comes so many knowledge and so many great places to visit and people to know. And obviously the people. I know Portuguese people are very welcome and very warm people, very good guests to receive people and to introduce their countries. I mean, we are proud. I know that sometimes we don't feel that we are proud of ourselves and we are not proud of our country, but that's not all of us. You can judge just by one people. I mean, I believe that Portuguese are if they are talking to each other, they would say bad things about the country, because that's what happens in the daily basis in the cafe, that you're going and you listen something about the politicians. But then when it comes someone that's not from here and talks bad about it, about Portugal, we are going again in the warrior mood, and we are going to say, no, you're wrong, we are good on this, and that's the truth. We actually are still talking about people good in so many things. You got so many great brains and minds working in Portugal, and some of those are not working here, are working in other countries, but if you go anywhere and you say that you have a Portuguese working there, people, oh, that's very good, because we are very professional on what we do. We create great things, and then we have something that I believe that I never met any other people in the whole world that has. Is a factory called the art of descanso. So that means that even if you don't know how to do it, if you don't have a solution, the Portuguese will find the solution. Even it's just with Portuguese, I like MacGyvers, basically in every profession that they work. They are the MacGyvers of the world.
I love that. I love that. MacGyver. I loved MacGyver growing up. I've never heard someone say we're Portuguese or MacGyvers, but it's 100% true. I love that.
Yeah, it is. It is.
Mariana, thank you so much. That's wonderful. I've loved this conversation. I've learned so many things, and I loved hearing you speak about your grandmothers. It's beautiful. So thank you so much for being on the podcast.
Thank you. It was a pleasure.
And I'm going to let you call it.
And that's a wrap.
So thank you once again to Mariana, and thank you to all of you for listening. Please subscribe, share with your friends, give us a thumbs up, and please leave a comment or a review. We'd love to hear from you. And as we say in Portugal, sejas bem-vindo. Welcome to the simple life.